Hi there. So this is a video about how to set up instruments for a gig using the drum pads to switch between the instruments. I found a lot of videos online that use the Chain Selector to do this, but I couldn't find any about using the drum pads. So this is a video about using the drum pads. The setup's actually really simple. You simply connect the drum pad to the record arm button. That's basically it. And then having done that, so this is an electric piano, that's a real piano, organ, little pad, chorus, some strings, I think it's the trumpets, and switching between the instruments is as simple as that. So the first part of the setup is you go into the MIDI section. This is Ableton. I spread Ableton across two screens. I've got the session view on one side and the arrangement view on the other. So you go into the MIDI selection, the record arm buttons will come up selectable, so you select it and then press the button or the drum pad on the Novation that you want to associate with that. And then you come out of MIDI as quickly as possible, just in case you reprogram anything that you don't want to. And that in essence is then set up. The Novation keyboard and the Ableton aren't actually linked. When you press the drum pad, it will send a CC signal into Ableton, but they're not actually linked. So there's some setup work to do in Ableton and some setup work on the launch key, sorry, beg your pardon, that you need to do independently, but so they're coincident. So on the Ableton side of things, I'm going to set up each instrument on an individual track. So there's 16 drum pads. I'm going to set up to 16 instruments across the way, and they're all independent instruments. Then if I choose the colours, so the colours on the tracks match the colours on the buttons down here. But again, that's not linked, just has to be done independently. And that's basically it. The thing to note on the Novation is that naturally it's a drum pad, so when you press the button the on light will come on, and immediately you release it, the on light will go off. You don't want that here. Obviously you want the green light, the on light, to maintain itself all the way that you're using that instrument. So you need to change that in the Novation side of things. So for the Novation side of the setup, you have to go into Novation's components. So you find your product, which will be listed, and then go into amend the pads. Each pad will come up and the colours have been mapped on the component screen, and the same appears on the Novation. The key thing is to go into to change the behaviour of each button. It'll be set automatically to momentary, and you need to switch that to toggle. You need to do that for every button individually, and then of course pick the colours. I've tended to group the colours together so that similar instruments have the same colour, and I've found that that's easier to find the instrument I want when it's dark. And that is how you set the Novation side of things up. So there are some advantages and disadvantages, of course, with this method. The key advantage is that you can see it in the dark. When you're on stage and the lights go out, all the pads light up, and you can, by grouping them, know which instrument is which all the time. So it's very easy to find the instrument you're after in a hurry. The second advantage is you can also, of course, because you're using separate tracks, it's not exclusively MIDI. You can put some audio tracks in here as well. So you could set up your guitar to come in via DI in via the interface, or you could set up a microphone with a vocoder on it as another option on a pad. There is a note: when you're using the Chain Selector, all of the instruments are on one track, so that associates the CPU to one core only. So even though you may only be running at 15% on your CPU, you might still get glitches. Whereas here, of course, every track has its own core, so you have more room, but of course all the tracks are going at the same time. They don't really ever turn off, so the CPU number will be higher. The effects on this The way I've chosen on this setup is to take the output of every track and send it completely to an effects track. So not to use the sends to a return track, but actually take the output and move it to a different track. And then set the effects rack up so that I've put the dry wet of each of the effects onto one of the knobs here. And that means that these knobs always do the same thing. So the first knob is a drive knob, and that'd be each knob does the same thing all the time. So it makes it very easy to get used to which knob does which. There are 100 other options of how to do this. The downside of doing it this way is if you want to go suddenly from a affected instrument to a clean instrument, obviously you switch the instrument, but the effects are all still on, so you have to go through and manually turn them off. There are some fantastic videos online about how to do that part of it and different ways of setting the effects up. So Nicholas Stepway did a great one on reverb. He's mapped the entire songs out and the instruments automatically change as he plays through the song. That's very clever. Other videos by Matt Flank, Celia and Studio to Sage also talk you through in detail about how to set up the effects, but specifically how to use the chain selector to switch the instruments. And that's about it. Good luck, hope it works. Thanks.